Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the crazy AI meme coin market. Got a lot to discuss today. Loaded up as headlines, we have Saylor announcing Microstrategy to offer another $1.75 billion of convertible senior notes to buy. Guess what? More Bitcoin. Also, Trump's media company Truth Social are in talks to acquire US crypto exchange Backed. And finally, Magic Eden revealed their tokenomics for the highly anticipated ME token. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs and a discussion on the general state of the market at the moment. So stay tuned for that. Got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. Cannot wait to get into the discussion on everything that is going on. But just a reminder before we do that, friends, we do not know everything for sure. This is not financial advice. So please proceed with caution and use your brain. Use your brain, use your judgment. This is not financial, legal, or any other type of advice. Legendary, that is my disclaimer. This is what we're going to do today. How are you doing? It's Tuesday. It's the 19th of November. How are you feeling? Oh, I cannot hear you.
There we go. Better
There we
now.
Yep.
Feeling both happy and sad. Happy that the market is still continue to do the crazy things it's been doing, and it's not boring at all. It's still impossible to catch up even with a couple of hours of sleep. Sad because it's the last night in Japan. Flying back home tomorrow. Gonna miss the show tomorrow, and gonna be in a very disadvantageous time zone to continue the trading. And I got used to the front running the US time zone quite a lot. So I'm definitely going to miss that and going to miss the country.
What has been the most advantageous thing from a trading perspective being in this time zone?
The swing trading. We talked about that briefly before the show, that basically some of the best points to exit are 2, 3, 4 a.m. our time, and that's just conveniently happening throughout my day. So you get way better entry and exit prices if you're able to trade throughout the entire US night. And you just get those prime activity hours in with no lack of sleep. You're well rested the next morning. That is the real alpha.
Absolutely love it. Just checking with the people listening in on the spaces. Got a couple of messages saying you couldn't hear us. I think that is all good now. Funky, is that fine?
Yeah. Now I can hear Legendary and you sound normal.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. Sorry about that little technical issue to start us off. Hope we're all good now. Look, we've got a lot to discuss today. Trading stuff, AI drama, more Bitcoin bullish news, more political positive news too. Then a nice little bit of tokenomics to dive into. A highly anticipated token. Feels like we haven't had a good airdrop in a while, so look forward to diving into that. Let's get into it, starting with the price action to get you up to speed. Remember, we're live on video on YouTube as well as live on X as well if you want to be watching in. Starting with the price action, we've got Bitcoin pretty much flat at 91.9K. We've got it's just up a couple of percent. Sorry, we've got ETH up a couple of percent too at 3.1. I mean, we say it's up a couple of percent, still at 3.1. Not really going anywhere at the moment. Solana also up a couple of percent at $247. Just on the meme coin side of things, it's a little bit red, to be honest, at least in the major meme coins, although some have been bouncing around. Doge is actually up 6%, back to 38 cents. Pepe's down 3%. WIF is down 3%. Bonk is up 3%. Remember, Bonk has been doing crazy volume compared with all the other major memes that have been listed. That's been a big point that people have been making in the last week or so. Bonk doing way more volume than WIF, for example. Popcat is up 4%. Peanut is up 5%. Goat is back down towards $1. So yeah, a bit of a mix on the meme side. Frog is down 14%, back to around 50 cents. Zero Bro, on the other hand, up 90% to 46 cents. That is an absolutely huge rise on the AI side. So that's that. We'll discuss more on the AI side in just a little bit. In terms of the headlines themselves, we've got Saylor announcing MicroStrategy to offer $1.7 billion of convertible senior notes to buy more Bitcoin. That'll be done at 0%. Legendary is going to break that down in just a little bit when we discuss the headlines. Trump's media company, Choose Social, are in talks to acquire US crypto exchange Backed. Absolutely wild to think that the incoming president of the United States, and his team will be partaking in the acquisition of a crypto exchange. I've definitely got some thoughts on that, which I shared on the timeline yesterday. We'll go through that. And then finally, Magic Eden revealed their tokenomics for the highly anticipated ME token. 12.5% is going to be coming to market immediately for the community as part of the airdrop. And the pre-market ME price of $2.50 represents a 233% gain in the last 24 hours on $193,000 of volume. We always note that the pre-market price is not always to be trusted, but we'll do a bit more of an analysis a little bit later there to see what could happen. A few notable sales: CryptoPunk Purple Hair selling for 44.95 ETH. CryptoPunk 4 still around the 37 to 38 ETH region. A Frog 1 of 1 sold for 275 SOL. That's pushing $60,000. Pretty impressive. And a Milady Moakley's sold for 15.1 ETH. Milady's have been ripping. And I'm going to pass over to Legendary to do the NFT market, which I'm sure you're going to bring them up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at the NFT side of things. We have, again, a pretty green day, actually. We have Bored Apes being up 2.5%, 13.2 ETH floor. We have Pudgies being definitely the winner of the day, 16% move, very strong day for Pudgies, 11.8 ETH floor, total of 26% gain over the last 7 days. Azukis are on a downtrend, down 4%, 4.6 ETH floor for them. Milady's, they were on a massive run. They are up 36% over the last 7 days. Didn't give anything back off that, up another 2%. 6.5 ETH floor for them, really pulling ahead of Azuki's. One more collection that I have to bring up. It's the collection that Luca calls the best generative art there is in the space. Obviously talking about his own collection, the Pudgy Rods. Pudgy Rods are following the green path that the Pudgies are setting for them, so to speak. They're up 53% over the last 24 hours, 62% over the last 7 days, and up to a 0.52 ETH floor, so more than half an ETH for this beautiful rod that we don't know its full purpose yet.
That's so funny. So rods are truly operating as penguin beta here, right? Because the penguins are also up from, I think they were no less than 9 ETH last week, potentially, and they're just touching 12 ETH now. So they've had a nice little move back into that 11 to 12 ETH region. Rod's doing a much bigger move on that as part of that move. That's interesting to see. Just to get you up to speed with the rest of the news from the Web3 space, we have Binance to launch a stablecoin with potential for 19.9% yield. I think this was slightly misunderstood by the timeline. A lot of people immediately calling this out as some type of illicit activity or crime, especially after the PTSD from the Luna anchor situation in the 2021 cycle, where that was allegedly a stable, wasn't the stable coin, but it was a dollar denominator. It was a dollar of sorts, and that yield was also 20%. So people immediately saw this and started saying the same thing. But it looks like it's more like a incentive thing where, like, if you provide liquidity in this way, you get different types of rewards, but it's kind of almost like a staking thing, I think. So I would definitely look into that a bit more before shooting it down necessarily immediately. Trump also announced he will be meeting with Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong to discuss appointments. That's pretty cool to see. California rejects Ethereum staking providers' claim Lido is not a legal entity with potential ramifications for DAOs. This is really, really interesting. I know some people are less interested in the kind of boring technical legal stuff, but you might have also seen that Nouns DAO has just transitioned into a different type of entity as well, because my understanding is they got some legal advice, which was that, yes, you may consider yourself a DAO and you might have set yourself up in this particular way. However, your individual members who are participating in the DAO might be liable in a scenario where you are sued for whatever reason. So I think what we're seeing here is a rejection of the idea that DAOs can somehow act like they are not a legal entity who can be targeted by another entity. And therefore, if you're not a legal entity, you as individuals very well may be liable. So that is very important, but I know some people try to gloss over that. Radium Protocol on Solana, this is big news as well. On Solana becomes the top DEX on all chains. I think it's currently crushing the other dexes in terms of volume, really solidifying Solana's dominance. Monad finally has launched its testnet, and a huge trader and investor in Monad, Kobe, confirms the transactions were very fast. Monad is an Ethereum compatible layer 1 blockchain. So that will be interesting to see if Ethereum compatible chains can kind of fight back against the Solana chain, which is obviously much faster and more popular right now. And finally, AI agent drama as AI16Z founder rejects the original Eliza token, favoring a new one. And then the original token goes down, but now Legendary just before the show is telling me it's going back up. I don't know what's going on in the AI trenches. A lot of PvP, a lot of drama. Legendary, that's the rest of the roundup. Those are the headlines. Before we get into the main stuff and the general discussion on the markets, is there anything, I think I know which direction you're going to go here, but what do you want to pick out to just chat about first?
Yeah, I'm gonna mention Kobe with a sentence first. I found that hilarious that out of everything they could have quoted or Kobe could have said, he said the transactions are fast. Like, that's not a very impressive feature. We've seen fast transactions anyhow. I just found it funny. We got a couple questions before the show if we can quickly look into what's going on with AI16Z. So let's do this. We do have quite a few headlines that are important on the larger scale of things to cover as well. So we're not going to spend too much time of the show on that. But let's take a quick look of what has been going on. We have Shaw, who is building AI16Z, who is building that agent framework.
What's the agent framework, Legendary? Just so people like get the base of what we're talking about here, because I've seen people who are like literally have no idea what's going on because it's just too many things are happening at the moment. So just to set it up.
Okay, so to set it up, we basically can pick up a different thing. Shaw has made this summary. What are they building? They're building an autonomous investor. This is the one we talked about, Mark Andreessen's AI version. They're building a trader. They're building this entire framework called Eliza, which is the GitHub repository for all the tech stack that they're using and building. There's now also an AI combinator, basically the VC investing arm that's also going to be autonomous, apparently. So they're building, to sum it up and not make it too complex, a full AI tech stack for all the things we see trending on the timeline right now. And as part of that, or not as part of that, as part of a community action, a token has been launched around Eliza, the mascot, if you will. And it was basically supported, acknowledged by Shaw. Shaw also made the point that they didn't have any plan to launch a token. And this was clearly poorly communicated, because today there's been a token launch, an Eliza token launch, that is. So there's two Elizas out now there, and there is exactly this PvP happening. One's the community one, the other one's the quote-unquote official one. And Shaw, in this explanation that I'm sharing on the screen, also made the point that they've been planning for 2 weeks to launch Eliza with a partner, which basically added a bit to the FUD. We have the top comment here by Seneca saying, that timeline doesn't really add up, because you say you've been working on new Eliza for 2 weeks, but you also posted 9 days ago that if someone wants to launch Eliza the agent and CTO it, I would allow that. We aren't going to do a coin. So there's a bit of conflict in the whole timeline there. There's a lot of FUD that led to AI16Z. That token dropping from 500 mil to 200 mil. I think it had recovered to around the $300 million mark. Shaw was going on a long space hosting that. I was out for dinner, so I couldn't listen into that. I don't have any updates from that side of things. And then again, there's these two tokens, the community, the OG Eliza, the new official one. There's also going to be an airdrop for people who are holding the OG Eliza. 10% of the new Eliza supply will be airdropped to the OG holders. And in terms of the price action, you had OG Eliza running up to 40 million. New Eliza launched, OG Eliza dumped to around 10 million. has now basically recovered in a 500% God candle, shooting up to 50 million, 54 million again. And then you also have the new Eliza, which again has been created 6 hours ago, has gone up to 99 to 100 mil, and now corrected down to 63 mil. So there's like clearly this PvP going on, which Eliza to basically pick, keeping in mind that once the community supported one, once the official one, and the official one has an airdrop allocation to the OG holders. So this is the current state of the Eliza affairs. Quite a lot of PvP, quite insane volume, but a lot of risk for anyone who wants to trade on either side of the Elizas.
Wow. Okay. So two thoughts from me on this. One, my instinctive thought is just a reminder of something we were talking about yesterday, where we were talking about recency bias. And honestly, some of these things have been around for like 7 days or 14 days tops, or 21 days max. They probably didn't even exist before November or the end of October. And just in our heads, it definitely doesn't feel like that. And so the things that some people are talking about as established just are basically not established. And so I think the relative risk of this type of thing happening across a variety of asset classes at the moment, whether it's AI, whether it's meme coins, whether it's whatever, is much higher, because you just don't know who's running these projects fully at the moment, and people are still getting to know those people. So I think that is one immediate instinctive point that I was going to make. The second thing is a point that G Money made, which I thought was important. He asked this question, which he said, I think this is probably the most important question to answer. Would love to get your feedback here, Shaw, because he tagged Shaw in it. He said, were the partners and team members selling the tokens before you guys made the public announcement about doing a different token? So this is the point, right? There was a community token first. At some point in time, well, Shaw on some way said that they had already planned to do a token, but then in previous communications, he said there wasn't a plan. So there's a conflict of the way that he communicated there. But putting that aside for a second, once you even knew that you were going to do a token, whenever that was, you and the team clearly had holdings in this particular token. The question is, were the partners and team members selling the tokens before you made the public announcement about doing a different token? And so he replied saying they sold the token. Didn't quite answer the question directly. He said they sold the tokens when they realized they were not the tokens from the partner we were working with, suggesting, which I do honestly find a little bit difficult to believe, suggesting that the partners did not know that it was the wrong token. Legendary, what's your thought here?
Let me just share over your screen to quickly add to that a bit. Look on Chain, had a bit of an analysis of what has been going on. So there's been a wallet, or someone had created 10 wallets. Let's ignore the new Eliza for a moment. Used them to buy 69 million Eliza with 2 Sol. That went up to a $5.2 million position, and that person, which is suspected to be this FUTJR person who is a member of the community, sold a large amount of this Eliza before the new Eliza was deployed. And this is exactly the situation that Shaw has been commenting on the G Money's post that you shared. He's commenting under here saying that this person bought the wrong coin thinking it was a launch partners. When I told him there was no coin, yet he sold. This is the explanation provided. And MK in the comments is also making the points. You can't snipe millions of tokens for $500 without insider knowledge. This is what MK is stating, bought being insiders, and they sold based on insider info from you. And Shaw is the only thing he again is saying to that, oh yeah, we definitely tried to get enough supply to get Eliza team, airdrop, and the DAO. So it's a a very, very messy situation. Again, impossible to tell who played whom, but definitely not looking nice from the timing of it. Because as you made the point, one thing is to buy, quote unquote, on insider knowledge, and the other one is also to dump before you know that a massive shift is going to happen.
Yeah, the one thing, I don't want to talk about this one too much, but I think it's an important point. We'll get to the main headlines in just a second. The one thing I sympathize with the team is, and again, there's conflicting information coming out of them, but assuming it is true that they did have the plan to do this token, which there's some conflicting information about, right? Because like 9 days ago, they said they didn't have a plan. But anyway, assuming that it was true, I actually sympathize with any team that are like cooking something up in secret. They want to do whatever it may be, whether it's launch a mascot, whether it's a coin related to the mascot, whether it's whatever. And then someone else in the community doesn't ask your permission, just goes and does it. Then that gets loads of traction. I'm actually very sympathetic to that scenario because yes, you are the project creator. You have a particular mascot and IP, and therefore you should have some type of ability to say like, look, this is the official thing. This is what we want to do. The point where it becomes less 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 viable to be sympathetic is if, as part of that process, whilst you're super annoyed that someone else did the thing that you were planning to do, you then just buy loads of tokens yourself, participate in the upside, and then sell. Like, if you're upset about it, don't participate it and just do the thing that you're going to do. Ultimately, they would have needed to rug the other coin, right? That would have been you can't get around that. You'd have to do that. But I think that would be the way to go about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The thing I would push back on is the being sympathetic part. Because if you say you don't have a token plan yourself and you kind of embrace the CTO one, and then you come up with a token yourself, like, just be clear in your communication. Every team is thinking about the fact, do we want to have a token or don't we want to have a token? It's not rocket science to clearly communicate. Pudgy Penguins and Luca have been doing a fantastic job on that. I remember when we talked about like potential Pudgy airdrops 6 months ago, and everyone who was on the team had the same wording. Whether that was Shiv on the show, whether it was Luca on the timeline, it was always Pudgy Penguin doesn't have a token right now. That was a statement that everyone understood as there is no token right now. That is something that everyone knows. This doesn't say we'll rule out the token forever in the future. This doesn't say there's going to be one for sure. It's a statement that clearly shows you we keep both doors open. And if there's going to be a token, our statement held true. If there's never going to be a token, our statement held true. And just, it's not that difficult to do that. And if you have plans for a token and there is a CTO version out there, then shut it down fast if you want to do your own token. If you had planned that before from the time that has been explained, and be like, hey, we are actually working on a token, this is not the official one, and shut it down immediately.
That's why I said, assuming that they did actually have that plan. But you're right. The communication at the beginning literally just said, we don't have plans. So that is not acceptable. One other funny final point before we get into the main headlines is, it's funny that a kind of derivative brand is annoyed at someone else using their derivative brand, when literally this is a brand that is called AI16Z. They're creating another AI creator called P. What's the handle? Like P M A Arca, which is obviously a play on Mark Andreessen's handle, literally ripping A16's brand, ripping Mark Andreessen's handle, and then getting upset if someone's ripping theirs. Like, I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if A16Z could legit have, I don't know if they think this is cool. I don't know if they think this is an infringement on their stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. Like, you're literally completely, a very significant amount of this value is derived from the A16 brand. So I'd keep an eye out on that. Legendary, thought on that?
Yeah, absolutely agree on that. I remember that Mark Andreessen did repost his AI counterpart that challenged him, that saying Mark Andreessen is the best fund manager ever, but I'm better, I'm the AI version. And he entertained reposts and comments with that. But as you said, this is just a repost, and if for whatever reason they will think that they don't like the direction this is going, and it is the brand that's being used, obviously there are legal options to be had for the actual original IP holder of that.
For sure. Like, imagine if they go and invest in things which, the real A16Z don't like. They're going to get a letter, I think, at some point if that happens. Okay, interesting discussion. That was the main drama overnight in the AI trenches. Let's get into the main headlines, though, because there's a lot bigger fish to fry when it comes to Bitcoin. There's just continuous streams of bullish Bitcoin news. The first piece today is on Michael Saylor. I'm going to hand over to Legendary to give a quick breakdown there, then I'll do a bit on it.
Absolutely massive piece of news coming out from MicroStrategy. Not because it's another Bitcoin buy, not because it's this proposed private offering of $1.75 billion of convertible senior notes at a 0% interest rate used to buy Bitcoin. I'm going to explain what that means in a minute. The news is so relevant because we talked on the show about the plans of Michael Saylor to buy to raise $42 billion to buy Bitcoin over the next 3 years. And we spoke about how that is to be distributed over the next 3 years. And the plan was to buy $10 billion worth of Bitcoin next year. And he already, according to a post by Bitcoin Archive that I'm sharing on the screen, has bought 66% of next year's $10 billion target in just 10 days. So it seems like at the moment, Michael Saylor is speedrunning this strategy. Going back to some of these details around that convertible senior note, what does that basically mean? It means that you as a person, as an entity, can give money, can lend money to MicroStrategy. That money is then being used to buy Bitcoin, and at a later point in time, you can convert this position into equity, into stocks in the company. Typically, that comes with an interest rate. So you're basically obviously earning money for lending your money to someone else. In this case, the interest rate is 0, which is a significant point. And it's also it's a show of strength to some extent because it's so bullish. It's Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy being so bullish on themselves that they're like, look, our equity position in the company, once you can convert that note in, I think it's 2029. Yeah, in 2029, it's going to be worth so much more because BTC is going to be worth so much more that we're not going to pay you a couple percent interest rate for that because this is a great deal at 0% for you guys already. So that is definitely a power play to do it like that.
Well, definitely. 2 immediate questions after before I want to take it in a slightly different direction. Overarching the YouTube comments asking, how can I borrow at 0%? Sounds good. So you kind of touched on it there. What's the full thinking for why Saylor and MicroStrategy are able to borrow at 0% in this scenario? Why would people not just go out and buy Bitcoin themselves? And then from maybe the alternative perspective, why? Yeah, that's the flip side. How are they able to raise at 0%? And on the flip side, why is the lender not just going out and getting their own Bitcoin exposure?
Yeah, those are very, very good questions. I think there's multiple things at play. There might be reasons that your company cannot directly invest in Bitcoin for whatever policies, but you or your fund or your family office, but you can invest in this company that keeps buying Bitcoin. Machi actually made a post on that. I don't know if that was joking or not, saying he's considering to buy a publicly traded company in the US and shape it to the likeliness of MicroStrategy and use it to buy Ethereum. So I think if you cannot buy Bitcoin as a fund company for whatever reasons, you can invest in this company, which I don't think a lot of people know what MicroStrategy does as a software company. All they know is they buy Bitcoin and they buy more and more Bitcoin. So it might be a way for you to get exposure to an asset that you otherwise would have a hard time to get exposure to. It might be more tax efficient for some. Even the fact that you're like lending at 0% and you don't earn interest rates might be more tax efficient because you don't have to tax the capital gains. there's a couple of things at play there why this makes sense and why the lender couldn't maybe buy spot Bitcoin.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a good set of reasons. I know Funky will want to come in on this. Funky, resident Bitcoin expert. What are your thoughts on Sailor going in again? Any thoughts on why this is actually a viable strategy for people to get their Bitcoin exposure?
Yeah, so this Legendary just made some great points already, but one of the things I wanted to chime in about is about the share price itself. There seems to be a premium, and almost as if this is a levered bet on Bitcoin, because up until recently, everybody knew Bitcoin was famously the best performing asset of the last decade. And then for a very brief moment in time, when Nvidia was surging, it actually eclipsed Bitcoin. But then very soon after, MicroStrategy eclipsed Nvidia. So now we're looking at a place where the actual shares are accelerating beyond what the Bitcoin ETFs are doing, beyond what the Bitcoin price is doing. And when you think about markets, especially TradFi, they're very future oriented. They're thinking about these things that, and all the great points Legend already brought up. There's a very good chance it's going to be worth way more in the future. So I think that's a big part of it. And then I couldn't also help but acknowledge the supreme cope coming from Peter Schiff, who's been whining on the timeline. I do not follow this guy, and I keep showing him. Keep seeing it on my feed. I had to finally mute his account. But look at the thing he said yesterday. Like, oh, if he keeps buying at this rate, he's going to need another new plan in 4 months. You know what? Let the man keep buying.
Love it. We always enjoy some Peter Schiff cope on the timeline. That's always nice to see. Funny how you blocked it, Funky, but somehow you still managed to see it. Sometimes you just enjoy seeing those things that you actually attempt to block.
No, I muted him after that.
I see.
But I did go back and shared it below if anybody wants to read the comment.
Love it. Okay, so there's that going on with Bitcoin. The other thing that's going on with Bitcoin, which I think is super important, is this strategic reserve chat. I know we've spoken about it a little bit before, but there's one particular account that I kind of came across the last few days. I'm going to share it on screen for people who are watching in. Started talking about kind of executive orders, and this is more on the speculative side at the moment. This is not news. This is not guaranteed anything. This is just something I've picked up on. It's a guy called Dennis Porter, who's the CEO and co-founder of the Satoshi Act Fund. They attempt to unlock Bitcoin's potential. They've been building policy for lawmakers and regulators in the States. And what he's been saying in the last few days is that he's hearing that, yes, there will be a SBR, a strategic Bitcoin reserve. They're pushing to do that. And they're thinking of doing that via an executive order. He tweeted yesterday saying, I've heard that the Trump team is considering an executive order for a national strategic Bitcoin reserve in order to beat any states from passing it into law first. I can confirm that US Senate offices are backing this plan up. Game on, President Trump. The race is on. He says his source for this is private conversations with people familiar, and also he is directly involved with passing strategic Bitcoin reserve language across the USA and the world. So look, I was trying to verify this account. I was chatting to a few people. I'm not super familiar with Dennis. It's the first time I've kind of been coming across his content in the last 48 hours or so. But I did have a scroll. He seems to be fairly well connected and be writing about this stuff for quite some time. I just wanted to bring that to people's attention because the thing that I tweeted yesterday was I just don't know if people can even comprehend the significance of that and the next headline we're about to get into, because things could just accelerate in such a meaningful way. If any of these things become reality, I think it would blow past any type of predictions that we had initially had. Legendary, any reflections on that before we go into the next headline, which is also very much kind of in line with this in some way?
Yeah, I think there's a great point to be made there. If you want to do that strategic reserve, you don't want to be front run by individual states or by companies doing that. I think we had the discussion on the show where Stats joined us, and Stats was taking the point. Look, all that has been said is that the status quo, which is US kept the bitcoins that they have been accumulating over the years, and then sell them will be basically reclassified as a strategic reserve, which would constitute a strategic reserve. And that, again, would be a very positive signal to finally confirm we think this is an asset we want to keep. But obviously, if you want to take that to the next level and just do an active buy, it doesn't even have to be a large quantity of that. It's just the fact that you would buy actively, as you say, would make a massive, massive mental difference to the market. I think that would be game changing for companies, that would be game changing for funds, because as we just said a moment ago, you have companies, funds investing into MicroStrategy because they can't buy Bitcoin themselves. But if those companies and funds suddenly can say, look, this is an asset that actually the US government is buying as a strategic reserve, that might change compliance policies and companies, that might change how some funds will operate in the future. So that would be an extremely strong signal to the market. Again, even if it's just a smaller buy, I think it's more the fact that there might be a potential active buy by the US government that is impactful.
Yeah, I like it. Look, I appreciate sometimes we get excessively bullish when talking about this stuff. It is kind of blue sky thinking, because that it does feel like the caps kind of get raised when you talk about this stuff. But let's continue just for 1 minute, because this was something shared by Marty on the timeline. I just came across Marty the last few weeks as well. He does a show with Mando once a week and a couple of other maybe more mature traders, I'd say, not coming up from the NFT trenches like we did in 2021. I think more kind of traditional crypto and macro experts. He shared this tweet and this visual, which I'm showing on the video. Bitcoin is in arms race, it's just begun. I watch these two numbers. Here's two statistics for you. 72% held by wallets outside the top 13. 9.35% controlled by Wall Street companies. If you look at this here, we've got the top 13 Bitcoin holders. You have so on this list of the top 13, you've got Satoshi, you've got Binance, you've got BlackRock, MicroStrategy, Grayscale, Fidelity, iFinex, which is a private account, US government, Chinese government, Kraken, Block One, Robinhood, and OKX. So that's the top 13 who control 4.3 million Bitcoin, or around 27.8% of the supply. And I wonder what direction this goes, Legendary. So I guess the thinking is those people are going to want to maintain that proportion, right? While simultaneously everyone else is going to need to try to allocate. So when both of those two things are happening at the same time, it could be quite significant. I just thought those numbers are quite interesting. Any reflections there, Legendary, before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, very much agree with that. Probably even more interesting to look at if you account for Satoshi's Bitcoin being lost and probably not going to be moved in the future.
Yeah.
Then this is just reinforcing what you just said.
For sure. Okay, so that's one piece of news which I think it's almost unfathomable I feel like, yeah, it's almost unfathomable what the consequences would be if that type of legislation was to pass, or if that executive order was to made. The other thing, which is uncomfortably bullish as well, is this news coming out yesterday that Trump's social media group are in talks to buy back. Oh, sorry, Legendary, I'll stop sharing. You can share it from your side. So this is the news reported on Reuters that Donald Trump's social media team is in advanced talks to buy a crypto trading firm called Bakkt. The Financial Times reported this yesterday, citing two people with knowledge of the talks. They said Trump Media, which operates Truth Social, is close to an all-stock acquisition. Shares of Bakkt, backed by the NYSE, shares of Bakkt, soared nearly 66% in late afternoon trading before being halted for volatility. There weren't any further comments from anyone on this, but just taking that news at face value, I don't think the market really reacted to that. I mean, we're up a couple of percent. We're just under 92K here. This feels like, I don't know. I saw a bunch of takes on the timeline yesterday where it's like, we've had so much PTSD in the past. It's almost like we can't fathom. I feel like this is part of the piece that's not priced in. Yes, we've priced in the Trump presidency now, or at least in part, but we're still waiting to see, like, is the reserve going to happen, and is this type of thing going to happen as well? Like where Trump just goes hyper bullish crypto. You know how we've been talking about those treasury appointments, and there's one in particular who's super pro crypto. I think his surname is Lutnick, and we don't know if he's definitely going to be the chosen person. So I think the market's like priced in the positivity, but it's still waiting to confirm, like, right, are you actually going to follow through now with the reserve, with the correct appointments? We mentioned earlier that Trump is speaking to Brian Armstrong, and it's been said that the thing that they'll be discussing is the appointments. I don't know whether that means Brian Armstrong himself would be involved, or whether he just gets a say or his opinion is heard for who he would recommend to be a part of this kind of crypto advisory group. But that's where I think we are now with this. It's like this incredibly bullish news is coming out, but the market's kind of just waiting here to be like, look, we just want to check that you're actually going to do what you're saying. What's your read on it, Legendary?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I would probably also add to it that the market is looking at this sort of news to kind of see how Trump family, Trump associated companies are positioning themselves. Because if they are making M&A deals like that, it means that they are inherently bullish on crypto, which means that they probably have a plan to follow through with the things that they've been talking about. And obviously, Trump can't just like spot buy Bitcoin and then just sell it after the US government were to buy as part of a strategic reserve. That would be horrible PR. I have no idea how that would look like legally, but obviously that would be something that would be declared on his tax returns, capital gains, etc. So you can't do stuff like that. But what you definitely can do is to find other ways to extend your involvement in crypto. And I definitely think that the market is very much looking at signs like these that are either confirming their assumption that this president will follow through with what he has been saying in the run-up to the election, or with extremely negative signs that would be if he's suddenly stopping his involvement with World Liberty Financially, stopping to work on a DeFi platform. I think the market would react strongly in a negative way to that. So definitely market trying to piece together additional information until there's clarity, until that key inauguration date, but also a bit of hesitancy, and this is where I agree with you a lot, on how to trade that, on how to act on that information. So yes, that's bullish, but at the same time, we don't see BTC being up 5 or 6% on the news, because it's more of a like indicator of where we could go, rather than a written final confirmation. Hey, we're doing that strategic reserve.
Yeah.
In a way that's actively purchasing Bitcoin.
Agree. Okay. Funky, your hand is raised. Definitely want to bring you in on this before we hit our final topic for the day, which will be a bit of a step change to what we'll be talking about, the Magic Eden tokenomics, which have been revealed, and the potential for that token and platform moving forward. Funky, final point on this one. Hit us.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in with my U.S. political correspondent hat here.
Yes, please.
Check out Ryan Selkis's feed the last few days. So it was between two guys, Howard Lutnick, who is the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, very, very big TradFi organization. But Selkis is concerned that Lutnick would be a cocaine cowboy who would crash the economy. So, and then yesterday on Yahoo Finance, there was some headlines saying that now Trump is kind of not necessarily favoring either of these two. I can't remember the other guy's name right now. And then there was two other new names floated. And it seems to be the Treasury pick is the one that's causing the most consternation as he's making this transition. Other thing I wanted to mention too is Legendary. Of course, he would never do that. Trump wouldn't sell his Bitcoin. He'd wait to get rid of capital gains taxes, of course, before he did that. But yeah, I think just looking at Selkis's feed is really interesting, seeing the players kind of emerge. And then also look at Brian Armstrong's feed yesterday. He mentioned something about needing to fix the tax code for Americans. This is something that Brett and I constantly talk about, right? Like every which way in America, you are taxed. You get staking rewards, taxed. Claim an airdrop, taxed. Sell some crypto, taxed. Make a trade, taxed. It's ridiculous. And he says there should probably be taxes on the companies not on individuals. So it's a really great post. I'll find it and pin it below.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. That was an interesting post. I saw an interesting response to that by Balaji, who I actually don't agree with. It was one of the rare things I disagree with Balaji on. He pitched this concept that instead of having a tax burden, what you should have is like a subscription, a state subscription service, where in order for you to be able to opt in to services, you need to be paying your subscription. And if you don't, you get locked out. And so, imagine a car system where if you haven't paid your subscription, it just doesn't work. You go to the library, if you haven't paid your subscription, it doesn't work. And all of this is done digitally, powered, I assume, by the blockchain or something like that, where if you haven't got the correct NFT because you haven't bought for it, you haven't paid your subscription, you just get locked out. So he was thinking that would be more efficient, but then there were very reasonable points, I think, in the comments which suggested, well, that's putting an outrageous amount of power into state hands potentially, and that there's some kind of dystopian outcome there that could happen. Legendary, any reflection on that before we move into the final headline?
I mean, we only have 7 minutes left, so I'm going to keep it brief, because when I've seen that, my immediate thought was that once we get to a stage as a society where we'll have universal basic income and the majority of the society will be depending on that, and the state has the option to lock out people from that if they don't do things that the state wants those people to do, or if they're not compliant with that, we will ultimately run into a situation that's very, very likely to this subscription model for government services either way.
Yeah, I have a feeling, I mean, it's getting a bit deep and going off topic here, I guess, but I think you're right. We're probably hurtling towards that future anyway, and it will just depend on how we manage it. But as you said, we have 7 minutes left. We've got another big headline to get through. Legendary, take it away. Magic Eden, huge protocol, huge potential, big token news yesterday. What's the download?
Absolutely. This piece of news has been massively awaited. Magic Eden has been teasing the token, has been teasing the airdrop for a while. Market was excited about it, but also not fully excited because we didn't have any clarity on the tokenomics. Now we do. We have a blog post that is explaining quite a lot of things. Before I get into the tokenomics, just a few stats that Magic Eden Foundation has been sharing, in that they've done $6 billion in trading volume, cross-chain NFT and token trading. They say they are the number one Bitcoin dApp because 80% of volume share on Ordinals and Runes is happening on Magic Eden. They also say that there's 3 million total wallets, 300K monthly active users on Magic Eden's mobile app. So they're boasting quite significant stats on that. And if we I'm going to skip through some of the pieces here and go straight into the airdrop part or into the tokenomics part of it. There is going to be a total of 1 billion tokens, 502 million tokens, so 50.2% going to the community, 49.8% going to team and investors. And it is split as follows. 12.5% is going to be the initial Magic Eden token claim. That's going to be the initial airdrop. There's another 37.7% earmarked to community and ecosystem, which is 22.5%. So the majority of that is reserved to reward active users of ME protocols. The remaining is the ecosystem development. So basically, if you take these 12.5% and add them to the 22.5%, you arrive at 35%, which is the total allocation that will be distributed to people using Magic Eden, presumably in future seasons as well. Will be a model that we've seen with Blur already. And on the team and investor side, it's a split between contributors and strategic participants. The key question is always with that is, how will this distribution look like? You can see, I'm just trying to make this a bit bigger. There we go. You can see the token emission schedule. Again, we have the initial claim, and then we have community, ecosystem, strategic participants, and contributors basically coming with the tokens to market over the next 4 years, over the next 48 months. And there's also a cliff here for strategic participants and contributors because they will only start unlocking in 12 months, in a year from now. And that's the side on the tokenomics. Definitely want to get into how the market has reacted to that in terms of the pre-trading. So let's take a look at Whales market. Where is it? There we go. Which is basically the most popular platform for pre-TGE token trading. We can see a couple of things here. We can see that the 24-hour volume has exploded up 3,000%, with still not a lot of volume, still only $230,000 of that. But we can also see a massive price explosion. We can see that the Magic Eden token is trading currently at, I'm just refreshing the page, at $2.9, up 180% on also a massive increase of volume. So we always look at those pre-TGE markets with a bit of a cautious eye, because there's been this tendency to over-inflate prices there. But I think what is undoubtedly that the market liked the news, that the market liked the tokenomics, because both the volume and the price are up significantly.
Man, I think I just found a very nice comparison, which I think should make people pretty happy. What I've got here, I see a lot of comparisons between Magic Eden and Tensor, for example. Tensor's got great brand, great team, great loyalty, I think, as well. Even as many people have moved away from kind of NFT trading on Solana, they've, I think they've shipped a new product, but it's always been a great product to use. And do you know, Legendary, question for you, trivia, what do you think Tensor, so just to clarify, Magic Eden at around $3, is that per token pre-trading? That would come out at a 3 billion FDV. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What do you think Tensor is trading at? Remember, Magic Eden is the primary, at least at the moment, the primary place where the majority of runes and ordinals trading has happened. Yes, they offer Ethereum NFT trading. Yes, they offer Solana NFT trading. That's clearly not where they're prioritized, but it's the main place for Bitcoin stuff. Tensor has probably been the main place for Solana stuff historically. Magic Eden trading and pre-trading at 3 bill. Tensor, what do you think it's at now, Legendary? If you had to wild guess.
Market cap 100 mil, 150 mil.
FDV?
If I say maybe what will they have, like 20%, 25% unlocked? So 300 mil FTV, 350 mil.
Better. So the market caps, maybe they've got less out there than you thought. So it's only 72 mil market cap. FDV is almost 600 mil, because their tokens trading at 57 cents.
They have like 11% of the tokens out there circulating.
Well, because I think they have another round of airdrops coming relatively soon as well, or another distribution to the community. I'm just zooming the chart out here for a year. This came out at almost $2 when it came out, at 175. So this came out almost at a $2 billion protocol. Of course, there was an immediate dump and decline, but even for multiple months this year, it was trading in the region of as $1 billion protocol. And of course, there's been further decline since then, but 500, 600 mil, that's pretty healthy, right? So, at least on that data alone, and if the Magic Eden stuff is calculated correctly, I think Magic Eden would be at least, at a minimum, the same as Tensor. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I would. There's no reason why that shouldn't be significantly more.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go further. And again, this is not advice to do anything, but I'd go further to say, because naturally when things come out, they'll always come out higher than what they'll be in the future. So what I'm saying is Magic Eden should be trading at least the same as Tensor, but that doesn't mean you always have this premium when you first come out, right? So I would expect it to come out much higher than the current Tensor valuation, because that's what would make sense. Of course, the market does strange things, but that's my perspective.
Do you know what could help it? The recent momentum that we've seen around runes. Like, runes have continued to rip upwards because of exchange listing plans or due diligence processes. And I do think that this momentum and Magic Eden being still the premier place to trade runes, I think we said 80% of Ordinals runes volume is happening on Magic Eden, could help send that upwards.
For sure. There's no way Magic Eden's going to be $1 billion protocol. I can, that's my prediction. That is my prediction for whenever they actually do finally launch the token. Look, that is our show for today. Hope it was helpful. Covered a variety of things. At the moment, we are doing our best to get across it all. We've got tokenomics and protocols. We've got the NFT market. We've got the AI trenches drama. It's hard work to keep on top of all of it, but we appreciate you for joining us to try our best to get you all the information. Remember, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on X Video, YouTube, and X Twitter Spaces as well. So wherever you find us on Apple, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts and Spotify too. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Have a wonderful day, and we will be back here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.